So you did a big announcement this week on crypto and creating a framework finally. I caught some of it. Maybe you could just tell us, from the bottom up, what is the mandate from the president and what is your advice to him on how to make crypto move out of the shadows, offshore, ICOs, craziness to legitimacy? What's the plan here to legitimize and regulate crypto?
Well, the plan was really spelled out by President Trump in his week one EO on crypto, and it's all spelled out in there. The principles of the administration on crypto, the president said he wants to support the responsible use and growth of digital assets and blockchains across every sector of the economy. So the principles are all there. And yesterday I was invited up to Capitol Hill to meet with the chairman of the important committees that basically govern crypto. And so we had a press conference there to announce the legislative plan. You can see there's Chairman Tim Scott, who's the chair of the Senate Banking Committee, to my left. And then to my right is French Hill, who's the chairman of the House Financial Services Committee. And then to his right is John Bozeman, who's the chair of the Senate Agriculture Committee. And then to the left of Tim Scott is G.T. Thompson, who's the chair of the House Agriculture Committee. He's out of frame right now. But those are the four committees that govern crypto. And you may ask, why is the Agriculture Committee involved in crypto? And the reason is because the Ag Committee supervises the CFTC, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, because commodities all came out of agriculture. So it's interesting. You need four committees across the House and Senate to get legislation done on crypto. It's not just House and Senate. It's actually two committees in each of the House and Senate. And so this is the first time where we've had four chairmen of the four key committees all come together and say that they're ready to support crypto legislation. There were a lot of people on X who felt like this wasn't, a mind-blowing announcement. They wanted something that they could trade on right away. That's not what this was. This was basically a statement of commitment from the chairs of the four committees that we're going to get legislation done this year, maybe in the next 6 months. I mean, that's really the goal. And we've never had that before. So that is pretty monumental.
I used to work in this because when I first launched Climate Corp back in the day, we actually were selling commodity contracts online. So we set ourselves up as an exempt commodity trading platform. And I remember all this old legislation. There was the Commodity Futures Modernization Act, if I remember, when they deregulated the energy market. But one of the features of the Commodity Futures Modernization Act was that they created this concept of an exempt commodity contract, which was where you're not delivering a physical good. And that's basically what weather derivatives were, and energy derivatives and other kind of indices were created that didn't have a tangible physical supply, and it was still kind of shoveled in the commodities world. That's why the legacy of all this stuff kind of sitting with agriculture. Is that the way this is likely going to move forward? Is it's going to look like a new extension of exempt commodities and kind of treated like that versus being securities?
The question you're describing is called market structure. What are the definitions going to be? Because digital assets can be many things. Yeah. You can have some digital assets are cryptocurrencies. They're actually currencies. Then there's things that are crypto securities. Then there's things that are commodities. Bitcoin actually is regulated as a commodity right now. And then you've got things that aren't securities or commodities. They're like collectibles, like NFTs, things like that. So there's all these different categories. And one of the things that the market needs is just clarity around the definitions so that founders know what the rules of the road are and they can actually just comply with them. So giving them those definitions and describing how a crypto project could start, for example, as a security, and eventually the protocol could become decentralized enough or maybe it becomes a commodity. That whole idea, that's called market structure. And there was a bill in the last Congress by French Hill, who is the chair of the House Financial Services Committee now, that passed the House with 71 Democratic votes. So it was fairly bipartisan, but then it went nowhere in the Senate because, frankly, the Banking Committee at that time was run by Sherrod Brown, who is anti-crypto. So it got stopped in the Senate right away. Now we have Republican control of the Senate, and Tim Scott's the new chair of the Senate Banking Committee, and he's expressed support. So I think now we could get a bill on market structure like FIT 21, again, which was French Hill's bill last Congress. I think we could do a revised and updated version this Congress. And that was one of the things the chairman expressed support for. So I think there's a pretty good chance we could get this done in the next 6 months.
The latest episode of the All In podcast features an intriguing discussion that has the stock market and crypto aficionados on high alert. David Sachs dives into the murky waters of crypto regulations, stressing the need for clear boundaries that could define the future of digital assets. What's even more captivating is that, with Republicans now controlling the House, the possibility of passing substantial crypto legislation seems more probable than ever. Welcome back, everyone, to Investocracy Crypto.
What's the opposition, Sachs? I guess it feels to me like with the market structure question being addressed and answered, you would have also more protection for consumers because now businesses know the rules of the road. They follow them. There's structure that protects consumers, et cetera, et cetera. Why would people be opposed to moving this forward, moving the legislation forward, getting this all behind us?
Well, I think this is an area where there's a really good chance of having bipartisan support. We did in the last Congress, like I mentioned, that the House bill got over 70 Democratic votes. I think in the Senate, we're going to need 7 votes, seven Democrat votes to get to 60, right? Which is the number you need if you don't go through the reconciliation process. And I think there's a good chance this passes with significant Democratic support as well as Republican. It's not going to be unanimous or anything like that because there are still forces that are hostile to crypto in Washington. And
you think it's going to be a discrete bill, or do you? I mean, it seems like you're going to have to get a border security and energy and budget bill passed. So it seems like everything's looking towards reconciliation. In which case, would this be an adjunct, like an add-on?
The question is what you can get through reconciliation. So in order for a bill to go through the reconciliation process, where you only need basically 50 votes, it has to have a budgetary impact or predominantly a budgetary impact. I think it's called the Byrd Rule. And that rule was definitely pushed pretty hard in the last administration. Remember that the Biden administration got the Inflation Reduction Act passed through reconciliation and all those subsidies for clean energy or whatever. So they've opened the window pretty wide on what can go through reconciliation, but that's the question. There's one other bill that I think is going to move pretty quickly here too. So I just mentioned the market structure bill. The other area is stablecoins. And Senator Haggerty, he's on the banking committee. He just released a stablecoin bill. There's counterparts in the House. And what the 4 chairmen indicated is actually they're going to take up stablecoins first, and then market structure will follow very quickly. So I think we could see a stablecoin bill pass Congress in the next several months.
Listeners of the All In podcast were treated to an insightful discussion as David Sachs broke down the complex world of crypto regulations. Sachs argued passionately for a structured framework to guide crypto developers through the precarious terrain of regulatory compliance. Each digital asset occupies its own lane in this financial freeway, with currencies, securities, commodities, and NFTs all requiring unique governance systems.
Sachs, I guess the question is the SEC was, and Gary Gensler were the blocker previously with crypto, and they just said, hey, listen, there's an existing set of rules here. Just follow those rules. Obviously, those rules don't exactly apply to the innovation happening in crypto. So the question, I think, after stablecoins, which feels like a layup and a great place to start, that'll be a great early win. And it just makes people, I guess that would just reinforce the dollar's supremacy, right? If it's tied to the dollar. So that's good for America. But maybe you could talk to protecting consumers, because we all saw in the first couple of generations of crypto, all kinds of grifts and ICOs and things that were never delivered. So how do you balance those two things? Protecting consumers who may get really enthusiastic about this versus, people who might try to prey upon them.
Well, the first thing you want to do if you're going to protect consumers is you want to bring the activity onshore.
Okay.
Because obviously when all the activity gets driven offshore, then it's hard for regulators to supervise it. And moreover, it's hard for the market to know who's a good actor, who's a bad actor, what's a good project, what's a bad project. So the first thing you want to do is have the innovation happen onshore in the United States. By the way, it's probably not a coincidence that the biggest fraud in the history of crypto, which was FTX, was based in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Probably a reason.
A little bit of a tell.
Yeah. And it'll be an even stronger tell when the good projects feel like they can come back into the United States. And then you've got the shady ones in the Bahamas or in other countries. They're going to stick out like a sore thumb. Everyone's going to be able to understand that, those guys are too shady to operate in the United States. Mm-hmm. So the number one thing we need to do is bring the innovation onshore. In terms of the framework, I think the market structure bill is going to define here's a security, here's a commodity, here's what you have to do, here are the disclosure requirements around creating a crypto project. So all of that will be in the bill. And then in the meantime, the SEC has created a new task force under Hester Peirce, who's a SEC commissioner. And she is already starting to do work in that regard to define a better regime at the SEC for crypto projects. You mentioned that Gensler said that the SEC's doors were open to crypto companies and they should come in and talk to us and work with us. That was very disingenuous. Crypto companies would tell me they would go see the SEC. The SEC would tell them nothing about what the rules were, but they would have enforcement people in those meetings just writing down everything they would say. And the next day they would get sent a Wells notice. So the truth is the SEC was not cooperating. They were not providing any clarity. They were just honeypotting founders basically to come in, and then they would immediately investigate them. I mean, it was really terrible. Look, we expect founders to play by the rules and abide by the law and be compliant. But when you won't tell them what the rules are and then you prosecute them, there's no fair way for them to comply. So the most important thing is to give them a framework. I think the SEC now is doing that. They're starting to do that already. And then legislatively, we're going to have a bill that does that, moving through Congress over the next few months.
Many have speculated on what solid regulations might entail, but with the formation of concrete guidelines finally on the horizon, developers stand to gain a clear sense of direction. Indeed, the Republican majority in the House offers a fresh breeze of hope, suggesting that meaningful legislation might not remain just a figment of imagination for long. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
This is absolutely awesome. We're super encouraged that you're doing this, and we really appreciate you coming on the pod. Wish you could participate in the other 3 or 4 crazy discussions we're about to have, but we understand you've got to stay focused on the mission. Anything on the AI front that we can look forward to in the coming weeks that you're working on? I know that's the other part of your mission.
Well, the big thing is, like I talked about last time, the president rescinded the Biden EO, which was this 100-page monstrosity of burdensome regulation on our AI companies. I think that decision's been proven even more right in the wake of DeepSeek, because we know that China has basically caught up, or they're very, very close to catching up. It felt like that Biden EO was written in a vacuum in which the U.S. was the only player in AI, and that if we imposed a bunch of burdensome rules on our companies, that somehow that wouldn't allow China to catch up, right? And I think it's pretty clear that China is very, very competitive. If we hobble our AI companies, it's going to redound to China's benefit. So I think that was a very good decision. And what the president said in his EO is that we should devise a new AI action plan to replace that Biden EO, and we're working on that right now.
All right, David,
Zach,
we really
any fun
appreciate
anecdotes from Doge you want to share?
I'll give you one anecdote, which is I've been working late here a number of nights at the EOB. And I won't tell you where the Doge guys are based, but I know where their office is. So I just went by there to say hi. The whole room was full of young coders. I think they were engineers, but they were wearing like suits and ties. So that's a little different. But they were all working really late. I mean, they're working there late up Friday night. And the facilities people don't know what to do because they've never had people like asked to stay late on Friday night before. So they've had to create new facilities access for these guys.
They're like, you're coming to the office and doing work. We don't have a protocol for that. How does that work? We're going to need to get you a key or a badge to come to the building.
Yeah.
Well, it's absolutely awesome to see the progress you're making in the first 2 weeks and continued success. We're so proud of the effort.
Investors should keep their eyes peeled for updates, as the groundwork laid down by Sachs and supported by prominent figures could usher in a new era. A promising regulatory framework may bolster Bitcoin's reputation further and elevate the stature of NFTs and other digital assets, creating unparalleled opportunities for savvy investors. But what are your thoughts? Are you ready to surf the crypto waves into a promising future, or do the uncertainties still give you pause? Share your perspective. And finally, if you would like to know more about cryptocurrencies, or specifically Bitcoin, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.